Oh,
Can we see if people are here? I'm not sure where that shows up, but I think we are live.
yeah, we're good to go. We can just assume that we've got lots of people here on today's call. If not, we're completely happy with chatting with ourselves.
Oh, okay. I see the number now. 6-9. It's climbing. Cool.
And we should preface this with saying John's out today, so you're stuck with me and Regina.
Right.
So we'll be answering questions. If there's no immediate questions, we will banter back and forth about some of the things we've been dealing with lately.
Yeah.
Some of it definitely like including what John was talking about the last time he was on. I mean, some of us even like me and my team are trying to digest all of that.
I was going to say, but we have some experience at least dissecting and translating what John says. So you can ask us questions that you would ask John, and we'll do our best to translate.
And Regina's being modest too, like high caliber, but John's always, he's a few or maybe way higher on that scale. But
yeah, he's always a few steps ahead.
Still getting some great stuff here. Not seeing any questions come in, so I think we might just have to banter.
Pick a topic. Let's see. Well, there's things like Google Ads.
Here we can. I think I can talk a little bit just about kind of where our head's been at a little bit as of late, and just reiterating what John has been saying. Is with the exclusion of keywords. I think as marketers, when we were finding out that we could finally exclude brand from PMax, we were hoping that was going to be the silver bullet. We're going to see new customers just start to flow in, and we could start to scale everything, and it would just be like the good old heydays. From John's deep dive, it's looking like that is probably not the case.
Right.
We're going to have to continue to do a lot more tinkering. When it comes to generating new cold non-brand traffic, a tried and true tactic has always been standard shopping. But I know a lot of people are trying to figure out how to deal with the black box of PMax. And I'd say a lot of marketers are still figuring that out. And we're just seeing what Google can release for us and how we can make sense of it. This is a good question. So first one is, here, Regina, I'm going to try to.
Oh, I can pull this up like this.
Sweet.
Sorry.
It's, hey guys, how do you exclude brand from PMax and still keep brand terms coming into standard shopping? So as long as you exclude it just within your PMax campaign, some of the campaigns themselves have the option depending on who you are. But if not, you might have to go the more difficult route and ask your Google rep to basically, you can get them to either exclude a list or you can give them some terms and they'll do it that way. If you have done it either of those ways and not have excluded them on the account level, just the campaign level, you should be safe for standard shopping. Yeah, and I would say, oh, sorry, Regina, you can continue.
I was just going to add that I don't see standard shopping going after brand that often. And I don't know why. Like maybe it's because we're always running a separate brand search campaign. That's kind of like, but those are two separate networks. So I'm not sure what's stopping the standard shopping campaigns from doing brand too often.
I don't necessarily know. And honestly, I usually try to keep brand out of our shopping as well. Make that go through the other stream just because standard shopping can be such a good way to get that cold traffic that you like to keep them separate. So I don't know if that's necessarily just going with your regular run-of-the-mill search brand campaign. I don't know if it's as popular anymore since there is PMax, but you could do a branded shopping campaign, but might just be better to have that PMax in that single instance.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. More questions are coming in. PPC Builders asked, is there any workaround to better control the remarketing that's in PMax that accrues from Facebook traffic? I used to know a workaround. I made a YouTube video once, like a year ago, about how to keep PMax from investing all of its focuses on remarketing traffic. And it was so long ago, I'm blanking. Do you think it was probably adding an audience signal of existing website visitors? No,
Yeah,
that's to keep it on remarketing.
well, there's multiple things and like ways you can approach this because I'm gonna put on my skeptics hat because I feel like without John here, that's what I might have to do. So, in a perfect world, I think what you would do is you would give PMax the signals of web traffic and like previous converters, and it would then go and do audience expansion and exclude those users, so it wouldn't go after warmed up users. But what we see with the black box of PMax is that when you give it the audience signals, even if it's like um, website traffic, it will still end up going after those users. So if you're running a Facebook campaign, it's still going to go after that path of least resistance. So PMax loves to go after that warmer traffic, and you're gonna find that if you have a Facebook campaign, it's going to go after that. I say try to find a way to make it work in unison. I think there's ways to look at things in a larger sense and look at scaling not only just Google at the same time, but Facebook in equal increments. So you can scale that way. Um,
I tracked down that video from a year ago, by the way. I'm sending it in the message thread just in case anyone wants to see it. It's called Using PMax to Minimize Crossover Between Facebook Ads and Google Ads. I cannot remember what I said in there. This video was made a year ago. Hopefully it's still relevant. But yeah, if you give it a watch, maybe it gives you that workaround that you were looking for.
mm-hmm.
Next question. Okay. Is there any workaround to better control remarketing and PMax that accrues from Facebook traffic? Oh, okay. That's the same as the one above. Okay. Can you mention what you all have done for your clients related to GA4? I know, broad question, but what are you doing now versus after the deadline? This is a great question that I know very little about. I know that the team is moving over to GA4, but I'm not heavily involved.
I can jump into GA4. So with GA4, I mean, right now and honestly, in the past, it's one of those things we've all just tried to avoid. We all hate change as people, and we don't want anything to do with it. I mean, the most simple thing that we've been doing for all of our clients is making sure that we're actually just doing the bare minimum switch over. If you have a Shopify build, one of the things I've been noticing happening very often is once you go over and transfer that data, whether you're using like GTM or if you're using like the Shopify direct integration, I would go in and check within your e-commerce purchase data that your add to cart and your view data is showing up for your items viewed. Because I'm noticing for a handful of clients that hasn't been populating, and we've been having to have our dev pop in, and basically he's just going into GTM and rewriting the, I'm going to butcher the terms here, but basically it's kind of like the variables to make sure they're communicating properly. I believe if you use the out of the box Shopify integration, you may have more luck with that. But we're basically just getting everyone in there, getting them acquainted with the platform. And what we aspire to do is start creating more exploration reports. And I think at the beginning, what you're going to see is exploration reports. And if you're not familiar with what an exploration report is, it's basically like I love Looker Studio, Data Studio, so I just think of everything in that term. So it's basically like a dashboard that you build within Google Analytics, and to start, I think we're going to mimic what Universal Analytics started to look like. So it's not such a hard pill to swallow for that change, and we can still look at like your acquisition data and everything like that. I think as we grow and understand the platform even further, I know in my past experience, I like to create it to really dive down and look at event data to understand like what streams were producing which events, and then the same sort of things where you could be looking at what products are selling from each platforms or campaigns. Of course, there may be some ways to get around that. with Google Analytics for currently. But if you're like myself, I don't even want to say lazy because it probably takes more time to make a report, but you can create lots of reports within GA4. And that's one of the exciting pieces of it. So I say just get started. Once you implement, check your data, make sure everything's looking right. And if it's not looking right, I'd say hit YouTube, as many of us do, to see what some of the other experts are doing to make sure that all your tracking is up to date. Or ping your developer if you got one. Sorry, long-winded answer, but
all good stuff. All right, Soren asked, you keep saying about keeping branded keywords out of campaigns, but what if you sell car parts, for example, which only brand search terms bring conversions, as this is so niched? Oh, okay. So there's a difference between brands and like the brand, right? So sometimes we work with clients who have a business name and then they're selling name brand products. And we'll sometimes create two separate campaigns, one called like the brand campaign and one called brands, which sells all the products. So this is a whole separate concept. The reason why we focus so much on keeping the brand name, like your business name out, or at least like paying attention to it, right? Because we found out recently we don't want to keep it out of PMax, but is because like people that are searching for your brand name, they already know about you. So this is a warm traffic that might find you anyways, even if there was no ad. Whereas like the brands, someone's looking for like a car part for a Nissan, they're going to that could be a cold lead. That's that's a keyword. That's just a keyword.
Yeah, you don't need to go in and exclude all those. But yeah, like with PMax, like everything seems to be changing every few weeks. The more we learn, it's kind of like an ignorance is bliss sort of situation. The more we learn, the more tinkering we've done, and we figure, oh, well, maybe we should exclude. And now it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't exclude because it's not making as much of an impact as we would like it to. So in your situation, I don't necessarily think you need to worry about that.
Yeah, because the car parts are just the names of the products in this case that you sell. So it's not the name of your business that they're already looking for you. Okay. Wissam. Super chat. Nice.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, he said, my account is getting an exaggerated number of invalid clicks. Some of my best campaigns are getting 80%, 86% invalid clicks. Whoa. Any recommendations?
I would start with, or Regina, you can lead first.
Oh, I'm kind of stumped. I have never. Okay, well, invalid clicks are refunded, at least, first of all, right? So it doesn't matter too much that that's happening, but it's a little strange and maybe frustrating to watch that happen.
Yeah, I also wonder with the terminology here if invalid clicks is referring to like, you know what I mean, like click fraud, or if it's talking just about like irrelevant clicks where they're not relevant to what you're after. So we can do both approaches. For the invalid clicks almost feels like something technical by nature. So I feel like I'd be messaging a Google rep about that or Google support. I don't know how much luck you'd have, but I don't hear of anything like that often. I will say there are tools that you can purchase for click fraud specifically. And so that's something you could look into. I think there's one called like ClickGuard right now that we have a client working with, and it seems like it does a pretty good job. But if we're talking just about irrelevant clicks, then I think it goes back to what Regina was talking about a little bit earlier with the audience signals that you have in your PMax campaign, and just making sure that those align with like your segments and the creative that you have if you are running creative, and if not, your listing groups.
Also, product titles are hugely important. I think the algorithm looks at product titles to understand what the product is and what it's selling. And to try to so keep any relevant keywords that people might be looking for in the product title. Don't make the product title long and obnoxious, right? Because Google's going to ding you for that. So you have to really carefully think about like, okay, I want this phrase in the product title. I'm going to put it in here. twice in this way, and write out the material that the product is made out of, the color, the size, if you can put what it's used for, but put it all in a way that makes it sound like a product title. I'm sure I'm not explaining it well enough, but there's probably some pretty good guides on product titles out there. And the algorithm is going to look at product titles more heavily than it will even look at your text on the landing page. So it's like your ad copy and keywords all rolled into one.
Yeah, Data Feed Watch has a really good blog on that I recently looked at. So if that's what you're into, I would say search product titles Data Feed Watch, and that might be a good one. Look at me plugging other things, but
okay, that's the link I sent. All right, Steve. Does the stair step method of scaling work for PMax as good as it did for scaling a smart shopping campaign? Should I take this one?
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, because I'm always pushing stair step.
I've heard you mention it a lot, so.
Yeah, we use stair step a lot with small budgets, but Colby's often working with really big budgets. And we found, well, the theory is that the algorithm doesn't need it so much with big budgets because the algorithm has so much data coming in. The conversion data points are so frequent that the algorithm optimizes pretty easily all on its own and grows because of that. It kind of has a leg up over the competition just by being bigger than most of the competition and faster. But with small budgets, we use stair step method to try to grow accounts. And just for everyone who's watching, when I say stair step method, I'm referring to when we like overpace for part of the month and like underpace for part of the month, because we're trying to artificially create little mini learning phases for the algorithm to go and have more budget for 2 weeks and go and figure out how to spend that, so that it's constantly being forced to go through hard things, which is tough. It's tough when you're managing an account and you're forcing more budget than you need to spend because it causes the performance to dip temporarily, and you have to bring it back up. So, but we do that with small budgets. Does it work just as good for PMax and Smart Start? So this is a good question. The thing with stair step method is it's really hard to prove that it's working. Like I've seen accounts use it. We've used it with accounts over like 2 years, and I've seen that account grow. I can't attribute the growth to the stair step method. We are using it with PMax, although with small budgets, we're almost always doing PMax feed only, which is a lot like smart shopping. And our accounts do grow over time, but I really can't point to stair step method as being the thing that's making it grow, because obviously there's just so many moving parts. So I think, my guess is yes, but I have no data for you, other than the fact that like most of our clients are growing, except for the ones that quit. So,
which is much less than the ones that are growing, one should say.
That's true. So yes, let's go with yes. Okay.
Cabbage fee, yes, maybe if you have a much smaller budget. If you have a larger budget, you should be fine. And I'd say when possible, like if you have a limited budget, don't try to over segment. Like don't try to split $100 with 5 different campaigns, because you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Every answer is always, it depends.
Yeah. And when we say small budgets, the way that Colby and I think about it, at least, is because I'm from like the StarterPPC
That's
brand.
true. What's a small budget for you, Regina?
Yeah, like I like we work in different like departments basically and different brands. So even though Colby is with the main company, Solutions 8, I'm with StarterPPC. And so StarterPPC, we work only with businesses up to $5,000 in budget. So that's what our methods kind of center around stair step method, PMax feed only, really limited, campaigns, because we're always working with $5,000 or less. So that's what we kind of mean when we say small versus not small budgets. Yeah.
And for me, I'd say small budget is like $100 or less, probably. Even like, so like kind of, we're fitting in the same bracket there.
A day. What is that? 3,000 a month? Yeah.
Yeah. Ish.
Yeah. Sounds right. Okay. Soren, is there any way to steer PMax into more branded search terms? Oh, you want more brand.
PMax will do that for you already. Like if you, I think you can just plug and play with your brand. I would say if you're not getting, it would be very odd if you're not getting your branded search terms in your PMax, because PMax
Yeah.
goes after basically the easiest conversions it can get, which is almost always likely your brand. If your brand isn't showing up in your PMax, I think there's a number of things you should be looking at to make sure something's not a little bit funky there. Because I would say the biggest issue we've been dealing with is, or not necessarily we, but one of the ones I've been focusing on is always trying to, we don't want brand in our PMax search terms.
Well,
So
we didn't in the past. Most
yes,
people want less brand, not more brand in their
yes,
PMax. But if you want to go after more branded search terms, probably the easiest way to do that is just to have a separate and dedicated search campaign that only goes after
yeah.
your brand's keyword or keywords. Um, we do that all the time, by the way. I mean, at StarterPPC, we do. I don't know if you guys do at Solutions 8 often have dedicated brand
Oh yeah,
campaigns.
yeah. There's always a
Yeah.
brand, and it, like
And
anything, it's your cheapest cost per conversion, but you don't want to put, I like distribute less budget there because it is more effective to get cold leads or transactions or whatever.
yeah, that's why we want to try to free up. We want to try to free up PMax as much as we can to go to do its thing, and it has like the power to do varieties, right? So we don't want it to spend all its energy on brand if there's a lot of brand traffic. Instead, we have a separate dedicated brand campaign, which theoretically, hopefully, takes, wins some of the bids against its own PMax campaign, and then the PMax campaign has more budget freed up to do its thing and to go after cold traffic. Now, you don't want to exclude brand from PMax. That's the latest thing, and it's hard to explain why, but it seems to not have a positive effect. But at least having a separate but dedicated brand search campaign, it lets PMax go after brand if it wants to, if it needs to do what it needs to do, but it also frees up PMax a little bit. I mean, at least, I know that for sure, right? Because there's a separate campaign that's winning some of the bids, some of the auctions sometimes. That was really convoluted, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, basically, I think your PMax campaign should be going into your branded search terms anyways. And like Regina's saying, you should. It always makes sense to have like a branded terms like search campaign, and then I just keep a strict budget control on that because we want to dedicate more budget to generating new customers, and then you want to use your paid PPC to bring in the new customers, and you can use your other methods of like email, the nurturing campaigns and everything like that to support, and that will do your retention side of your business.
Yeah. And by the way, that same concept applies to remarketing too. We always have if the client will give us any videos at all, which we're always asking for videos, then we always have a dedicated video remarketing campaign. We almost always have also a dedicated display remarketing campaign. And if it's a e-commerce, then we do dynamic display, dedicated remarketing. And it's the same concept as having dedicated brand. We just want to free brand PMax up to do its thing. We don't want it to spend 100% of its energy on brand and remarketing, right? So we also just want more control. Like, we know we want to max out the remarketing. We know that we want everyone on the really teeny tiny remarketing list to see this video 6 times, and we have full control over that if it's in its dedicated campaign. Whereas in PMax, we're just crossing our fingers that the algorithm figures out that that's the best thing to do. And with small budgets, I don't trust the algorithm to figure anything out. So
Regina, would you say, do most of your clients run other platforms too, or would Google be the primary tactic and like only tactic?
we're dealing with such small businesses, I would say that only about like half of them are doing like some Facebook or Etsy ads.
Yeah.
We often get people who have like, some of our clients have these huge Etsy stores, and they just want Google on a small budget just to do some remarketing and brand and like protect the brand name, which I think is a really good strategy if like your main business is Etsy. So they hire us just to stay small with Google. And then we have the ones that where they'll come to us for Google, and we say, hey, you sell B2C products, you should probably be on Facebook ads too. If they're not already, we tell them that. And sometimes they are, but they're not spending enough on Facebook. Like if it's truly a B2C product based business, I'm usually like, you should be spending more on Facebook than you are on Google, because
Yeah.
that's where you're going to generate the most of your like website visitors, and then Google can do the job of getting them back and converting them.
Yeah, totally. You gotta build that top of funnel. And so the long-winded answer is we're putting more money at the top of the funnel, put less money at the bottom of the funnel,
Yeah.
because your branded terms are cheaper. And so, in a long-winded way, I think we've covered that
Yeah,
question.
totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Where did I leave off? Is there a way to steer this one? Steve.
I
Do you
think
want
we
to read?
covered
I'm
that one.
always reading the questions. Oh, okay. Next one. I'm always reading the questions. You want me to keep doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you guys run a seasonal gifting brand? Seasonal gifting brand. Oh, okay. The season is over and sales will start to drop. Should I turn off campaigns completely or just drop budget? Great question that I never know the answer to.
John answered this one recently, so I can just steal his answer. A lot lately, I feel like I've just been. It's fun when you work with smart people because then you can just take their ideas and
Yeah.
it sounds like yours. But I've heard that it never hurts to keep your campaign on a low little hum. So maybe you give it like a $1 budget, and so it's not going to spend anything, but that doesn't turn it off. And that way, it's continuing to watch the traffic. It's looking at everything. And then the analogy I have, it's like imagine that. Actually, this isn't. I'm making the analogy up as I talk, but imagine having a dog in front of food and you're holding it with a leash and it's just trying to get to that food. The food is the data, but the leash is its budget constraint. It can't spend, it can't get to the food. But then when that season comes up, when it's that gift giving time, you open up the leash and then it just hits the ground running and it's ready to go because it's basically been learning, it's been watching the market, and it'll have much better information as if you were just to turn it off. And with that, my dog analogy is completely gone. I don't know what to tell you,
I
but
like it.
it's good to have a low little hum. And I've seen John do it, and I've done it from time to time as well. So
Yeah, I would be hesitant about turning it off. I have a cool idea that you could try, Jom. So inside of a standard shopping campaign, you can set up ad groups. And one thing you could try doing is setting up an ad group for each major holiday. So like, for example, you've got like Christmas. What else is a major holiday? I don't know, like Mother's Day. Like if you have separate,
Valentine's Day,
yeah,
not
if you have
holidays,
separate
but people buying
types,
stuff.
if some products fit into one category over the other, you could split it into like two or three main categories. And obviously like birthday type gifts are going to be year round, whereas then you have like the seasonal type gifts that have their own campaigns for different quarters of the year. And then what you can do is you can take the T ROAS, like bid setting, and you can slowly move the T ROAS up and in one ad group and down in the other to try to like rein back on one ad group while you let the other ad group have more reign for a few months and then switch them. I would not move the T ROAS too drastically, and I would not set the T ROAS settings too high, but it's something that you can experiment with to try to manipulate the budget into like different gift giving type seasons. We've been using this strategy, but I haven't had the opportunity yet to use it on like a highly seasonal type business like yours. But that's my plan the next
I
time we
wonder
work
if you
on it.
just, Regina, if you use that plan and then you just did it at the account level, but then left like it opened from there. And when the seasonal time comes up, like the best performers are going to perform anyways. So the other ones won't spend. And if they do, it's still hitting your T ROAS goal. So you're in a happy place. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
you
just
don't need to.
I never trust the algorithm to like iterate. Like it seems to find some products that work and just lean into those products, and it doesn't
Mhm.
try new things. So I get frustrated with it, which is why I want to like force it.
Yeah, I hear you in that sense. I'm also thinking of a way to not make a campaign spend is you just give it a large T ROAS goal, and you won't you won't see much happen. Like you can,
Yeah,
a great way to accidentally kill
it'll
a
work.
campaign.
Yeah, don't give it the TROAS would be more of a method of like manipulating its focus rather than restricting its ability to bid. So if your goal is like a 300% return, for example, you wouldn't put 300 as the TROAS. You would just keep it really low, like 30. What do you think, Colby, about using like shared budgets? I
You
never.
know what's funny? We've really been leaning into shared budgets
Oh,
lately, and even shared bidding strategies, which is funny because I used to like shudder when people would say those words to me. But it's no
really?
different than just having a really large campaign. And if we think of what PMax is, it's just a huge campaign sharing data. So, I mean, in a perfect world, I'd love just to have my own PMax where I have all the control. So that's kind of what you can do. It's nowhere near as effective as PMax, but it's worked well for lead generation, is what I can say.
Cool. Yeah, we don't use shared budgets much over here. We haven't over the years, but I've never understood why. So I'm glad that we're starting to.
It's good when you have ad group or campaigns that will, like, in actuality you could just pause campaigns, but say you have like 4 campaigns that have been running for years, and you don't want to pause 3 of them and put them under one. But like say there's lots of
Mm,
volatility, like 1 month it's going to spend, I don't know, like $10,000, and then the next month it's going to spend like $300. If you
mhm.
have a non-shared budget for that, you have all this unutilized budget, and in theory it'd be
Yeah,
so perfect if that, $700 that wasn't spent went to one of the other campaigns. And
right,
so that's a good way for it to work. Of course, that same understanding just works as if you were to pop everything under one campaign.
right. Yeah, I like this even better than putting it under standard shopping and splitting it out by ad groups because now you can use different types of campaigns. You don't have to just stick to standard shopping.
Yeah, true.
So cool. Okay. Uh, More questions. Okay, our shopping campaign is piggybacking off of the competitor campaigns. I think Google knows the competitor keywords convert for shopping. How would I scale properly? They do convert. I'm surprised because usually competitive keywords.
It's so industry dependent and vertical dependent, because I have clients where, competitor conversion is very, very expensive, but then I have others where, it's a little, depending on like the size of the item. Sometimes when there's not that much difference, people will just switch over, and
Hmm.
it won't be the same cost. I mean, as long for me, I just like take it at its core and I look at it, and as long as you are receiving cold traffic, I mean, there is the 20% method every 7 days, depending on how large your budget is. I feel like we're falling out of that though with PMax. Like I don't know if we're able to scale as efficiently as or as powerfully as we once could. But I would say, yeah, if it's a shopping campaign, that's what I would do. I would just increase its budget in regular intervals, not too drastic. Follow that 20% rule,
Mm-hmm.
and just follow it. Increase the budget, watch it for a week. When you start, maybe even give it a longer amount of time. But if you're getting a really good return, um, increase that budget, watch it, increase that budget, watch it, and go from there.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
keep an eye on everything else, because everything you do is going to have an impact on like your account. If you have other platforms that could impact like Facebook, you never know what other issues you might run into until you start pushing something. If it's a simple campaign and there's not much running around, you're probably fine. But just keep an eye on everything. Don't get too tunnel visioned on the one campaign. Take a look at everything holistically.
Yeah. Competitor keywords. If they're working, scale with them. No problem. You're right. As you were talking, I was thinking there have been 2 cases where I've seen competitive keywords work even better than like non-competitor keywords.
Mhm.
And that's when we were doing workspace, like office space rentals. People would search for WeWork, and that was our best keyword was WeWork, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
a WeWork. We weren't like WeWork wasn't our client. It was like a small office space brand. Um, and then a moving company that I'm actually working with right now, one of our best keywords is U-Haul.
Yeah,
It makes
exactly. And sometimes people are like, some people sometimes for brands, people don't even know what they want. They just know, you can piggyback exactly off of all the hard awareness that some big multinational company
Yeah.
is spending. And then you just take that. It might, in some cases, it might come really, really expensive to you. But if it's not really expensive and you're getting good return, like you're receiving a positive ROAS or everything. And when I talk about ROAS, know that I am still going back and saying, look at your MER within, if you don't have a MER, calculate it manually, look at the cash in and cash out when you're increasing the budget within your standard shopping campaign, and if the ROAS is looking good within Google, make sure that when you're looking over your time periods, that your media efficiency ratio is staying consistent in your customer acquisition. So if you start to see any of your global numbers dip, there might be more to that picture, and you might want to just take a step back and look at things.
Yep, that's true. Every time the business is hitting your MER, media efficiency ratio, that you need to make a profit, add 20% to your budget. If you have a whole month that doesn't hit your media efficiency ratio, just wait a little bit more, maybe try something before you add 20% to your budget. But if you don't know your MER goal and you let a good month where you're hitting your MER goal go by without adding 20% to your budget, you're missing opportunities to scale. So
yeah, scale while you can.
yes. Okay, let's say I still have a smart shopping campaign. Not that I do, but let's pretend. Is it safe to increase budget 10% every week? I think we actually just touched on this, right? Like if you're not hitting your MER goal, don't add budget until you are, because every time you add budget, it's going to bring that return down just a little bit temporarily. So you don't want to bring it down if it's already down, right? Because then
Mm-hmm.
cash flow, then you run into cash flow issues. So yes, add 10% to your budget. Know your numbers if you're hitting those numbers.
Yeah, and I think if you have a smaller budget, sometimes that percentage might be a tiny bit different. Like when you start a campaign, if you don't spend a certain amount of money, you might not be giving Google enough data to optimize from the beginning. So, yeah, with anything, when you increase your budget, just take some time. I always want to jump the gun. I just want to react off everything, but take some time, at the very least a week, see how that's performing. Some strategists will take 2 weeks, but it's so dependent on budget and the context of the client. But yes, in theory, you can scaling, you can increase your budget and then just reassess every like 7 days, 2 weeks, etc.
Yeah. At StarterPPC, we do it on a monthly basis, mostly because we're doing that, overpacing, underpacing thing. So we can't really judge 1 week out of the month, since 1 week we might have just increased the budget 40% temporarily for a week. Well, of course, it's not going to look like a good MER that week. And then we might underpace near the end of the month so we don't spend too much of the budget. Well, that's going to look like a great MER, but it's artificial because we're just slowing down for budget reasons. So we have to do it on a 30-day rotation for budget increases and for just assessing the MER. Okay, John said C, fastest shipping times. But I don't know which question that's referring to.
Is there conversation going on within the conversation?
No, not that I've seen. He sent 3 questions, and or 2 questions above that we already answered. So it's got to be something about one of those. Should I turn off the campaign? He said seasonal gifting brand. I'm not sure.
Yeah, might have to send another one, a follow-up to that.
Yeah, Soren, yes. Not company brand, but product brands. Yes. Okay, John, for shopping. I don't use TROAS at all. I use maximize clicks during Mother's Day. I adjust the budget once I see sales come in and decrease accordingly. Perfect. You're doing it right. Wait, was that the right response, Colby? I'm not the best at knowing which bid strategy to pick. I'm like just so out of the loop lately. I can't.
It's as long as you're getting what you want, like that's fine. Just understand what you're like. If you're using just understand the context behind what you're using. Like if you're using CPC, I assume that you're using it because you're trying to like outbid a competitor or hit a specific cost per click. But just know that like, yes, smart bidding can optimize and perform better for conversions. But if you're trying to get granular, you have that knowledge and you're using cost per click or whatever, yeah, like that's fine.
Yeah. I think we use maximize conversions a lot, except for in certain cases. Maximize clicks works. I'm just always excited when I see somebody who is not using TROAS, because I can't even tell you, like nine times out of 10, when we take over Google Ads accounts, the TROAS is set to like 400%, you know? And the problem with that is like Google is going to do only what it already knows is going to bring you 400%, which isn't much, right? So it's going to keep trying to do the same thing over and over and over, and it's never learning, and it's never going to be growing its knowledge, and it's never going to build power, and it might even just shrink after a while, because what it already knows is going to kind of be old news after a while, right? The market shifts, the weather changes, the product prices change, the competition changes, and so you just can't. But you know this, John. I'm preaching to the choir.
I'm sorry, I'm going back on this because I just reread this. So using max clicks on Mother's Day, I'd be hesitant with max clicks. Like I understand when you use like manual clicks when people are adjusting, and this is definitely like on the more sophisticated side, using manual clicks because you're basically trying to skirt around the algorithm to go after strictly cold traffic because you don't necessarily know if you're going to get cold conversions through Google's algorithms. But if you're using max clicks, you may actually be overpaying and missing some opportunities because it is optimizing just for clicks in that instance. And you could be optimizing towards a ROAS goal, or you could just use max conversions in that case. It might even be better. If you have a ROAS goal, I would probably shoot that in there. But if you're just going after volume, you could probably use a more put a limit in there. So I'd be hesitant with max clicks. I'd probably use TROAS, or if you don't necessarily have a number, I would go after max conversions.
But TROAS is only good in like short periods of time, right? Like, I mean, over Mother's Day, for example, it could be good.
Yeah, and I would probably just put a low ROAS on
Low
that day.
TROAS.
So, because if
Yeah.
you put a low TROAS, then you'll get more. It'll basically open up the floodgates, and then you'll get more users in there. And within that day, within that time period, users are more likely to purchase anyway. So, the people that Google registers as less likely to pay, and so when you open up your TROAS to a higher number, you include them, even though they might be more likely to pay during that time. So it'll work out, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking ahead and very confused because. Yeah, so sorry. I derailed that. The bidding strategies are always something that we end up just trying different bidding strategies and seeing which one works. I know there's a lot of philosophies behind it, but honestly, like it's hard to know until you try.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's a lot of different information floating around about bidding strategies.
I'll put it out there though and say I'm not a big fan of max clicks.
Hmm.
I'd be hesitant with that one.
Yeah, we only use max clicks at StarterPPC if max conversions, which we want to use, isn't spending. And usually that would be on like a remarketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. Okay, next question. This is what I got confused about. Steve is saying we slipped his question above. We have another look, but I read all of his questions above and we went through them. Does the stair step methods of scaling work for PMax as good as it did for scaling a smart shopping campaign? We answered. And let's say I still have a smart shopping campaign. Not that I do, but let's pretend. Those were the only two, Steve, and we did them, so I'm not sure which one you're referring to. Okay.
We can just keep moving along, and if we see another one, we can pop there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My MER is 2.5, but I want to wait until it's 3 to increase budget. Overall, I want to be over 3 long term. Okay, just make sure you're choosing a MER goal that's competitive. You can't just pick a number out of thin air. Sometimes, most of the time, the industry is pretty set by your competitors. So if your competitors can be profitable at a lower MER goal, then you have to too, because they're the ones setting the cost per click that you have to pay. And unless you're getting a much higher conversion rate than they are, or a much higher click-through rate than they are, or a much higher average order value than they are, or you have some like magical upsell process for repeat business than they are, you will have to choose a competitive MER goal. And a competitive MER goal is probably one where you just take your profit margin and you figure out how many times that divides into 100. And then you can just add a little bit to that, and that's your number. So for example, if your profit margin is 40%, 40 goes into 100 2.5 times. So your break-even MER would be 250, which is where you are now. But but a competitive and profitable MER goal would be something a little bit above that, like 270%, not 3. So, but just, I don't know your profit margin, so just make sure you're doing that math to be very granular about staying competitive. Okay. Anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. I just did a recording on this, so I had all the talking points in my head. Okay, based on today's learnings, I should focus more on top of funnel. I assume my competitors spend more on Facebook also because his creatives and ads are very visual. The emotion sells the product. Yeah, I think John is the one with the gift business. I don't remember talking about top of funnel for this one. Oh, like B2C, because it's B2C products. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you should be, as a rule, you should be spending more money on your top of funnel.
Yeah. Either on Facebook or just make sure you're doing maybe like a full PMax.
Yeah, and when I say top of funnel too, it doesn't mean don't spend your money on Google Ads, right? Like in essence, PMax is every step of the funnel, so you could be increasing budget there. You could be using discovery, display if you're having success on those mediums. YouTube is one of the big prongs. If you can have success on YouTube, it takes longer than something like Facebook, but if you get YouTube working really well, it's so powerful, and especially like it's just a great piece. It's really hard to attribute though, so take your time on looking at that, and just you might have to do some like incremental analysis of looking like when YouTube ran versus when it didn't run, and seeing if there's any sales lift there rather than going off the platform numbers.
Yeah, that's a great point. You have to look at everything holistically, especially when you're doing top of funnel, because top of funnel never shows the sales. And then everyone shuts off the campaigns, and then the bottom of funnel campaigns don't do well.
Yeah, you need to feed your bottom of funnel.
Yeah. Jan, okay, we have 12 minutes left, so we just need to keep.
All right, maybe we'll go. I don't know how many questions we have, but if yeah, we're good. Okay, let's keep going.
Once we get closer, we'll know. Okay, do you guys ever do full build PMax anymore, or shopping only now? Also, do you ever split asset groups by audience anymore, or all audiences in one asset group, but split asset groups by product groups? Great questions.
Do you want me to go, or do you want to go?
I can go. So I don't know. At StarterPPC, we're always working with really small budgets. 90% of the time we're doing shopping only. We make some exceptions where we'll do full PMax if a client comes to us with full PMax already built out, that they've already been using it. It already has a lot of history and it's showing some promise. Then we'll take it over and we'll work on that. But it's very rare that with such a small budget, we'll start out with full PMax. We start with shopping only. We try to train the shopping only to get going, and then someday add an asset group or 2 or 3. Colby, I hope my latest learnings about this are not different than yours. Otherwise, we need to sync up. But like for the second question about asset groups, like I don't believe in audience signals. Like I don't think they do anything. So we never do. Like if we're working with full PMax, it's always just the same audience signals in every asset group, and we split by product categories, product groups. But I don't know that everyone subscribes to that philosophy. What were you going to say?
I like how diplomatic that was. Subscribing to the philosophy. No, I do agree with you. There is a lot of chatter about the fact that with the individual segments, it really doesn't work like Facebook, where you can just match your creative with an individual segment. Like, I haven't seen the results for that. And to be honest, like, we can't even, you can have there's that script out there where you can see performance by asset group. But even with that, I'm not entirely sure if that's like 100% accurate. And with that, we do tend to opt towards just doing product group, like a shopping build. That's what our preference would be. We use shopping build. We will segment by listing group for those if you have specific products. So like jeans, t-shirts might not be the best example. Like, sometimes if there's no reason to segment, don't segment, but sometimes you have no choice but to. We've also noticed this instances when if you're selling two product types that are just so different from each other, if PMax is continuously going after that, like, it's going to go after the path of least resistance. So if you have a $50 product and a $300 product, your one PMax campaign might just be going and firing all cylinders on the $50 product. So one of the methods that's been done around here is creating another campaign and isolating that data and just having the more the higher priced product within there. So just segmenting it that way. But starting with everything, I think the approach should be you start with everything together, keep it super simple, build a PMax campaign, bare bones, let it just be a single product feed, and then see how that does. And then if you see products that aren't getting any love and they're significantly different, because if they're not significantly different and you put in another PMax campaign, they're just going to cross. And
another asset group, you mean?
Sorry?
Another asset group, you mean, or another PMax campaign?
No, another PMax campaign.
Oh, okay.
But that's only if the products are different enough. So you're not getting all of that data convoluted. And it's not a method that we adhere by and do all the time, but sometimes we will separate things out that way. But I would say when you're getting going, just make a PMax campaign and then just make it all feeds and all your listing groups. And then don't do full build PMax if you don't have to. We run some full build PMax, but I'd say it's not always the choice we'd like to go to. And I've been seeing lately that just feed only PMax campaigns have been performing better. So,
yeah. I was going to say, I think the point of audience signals is if you have a product that could be sold to two very distinct, separate type of people. For example, let's say you're selling thingamajigs and you could sell it to a government official who works for the city and they, are in the engineering department and they, want to buy this thingamajig. Or you could sell it to a company that owns a warehouse and they definitely need this thingamajig for their machinery, and so you have you have two very separate purposes and you need to speak about the product differently in your ad copy. Maybe audience signals could be a good indication to Google. Although even then I feel that Google can figure it out and the audience signals are necessary. But I've never seen this happen. I've never seen a case where there are two very distinct things for an e-commerce company. I've seen it in lead gen quite a bit, right? If you're selling marketing services, you could be selling to a freelancer or a director of marketing, and they tend to talk about things differently. So you want different ad copy for those two different people.
Yeah, that's
different
true.
Keywords. But you don't run PMax for lead gen, at least not yet. We don't. So it doesn't really apply.
Yeah. You can use asset groups for different messaging. I think that's a thing we should say. If you have different messaging, you can go and just test it out as well.
It just never happens, but you could. Okay, we have 5 minutes. Can't get standard shopping to spend the budget when running besides PMax on any of my accounts, even if I try it on max conversions or high CPCs. Any way to battle this problem? Oh, we used to struggle with this. Why did it stop happening? Our struggle.
You got to increase your T ROAS. So you got to be on a T ROAS PMax campaign. And
Oh.
then I don't know what your numbers are, but I've seen it work where you're like between the 300 and 400. And then within standard shopping, we have seen it work when we do I don't know if we do enhanced CPC. Try manual and then put everything at like $10 a click, or look at what your highest price click is and then put all of the items at that higher price. And that's usually how we see it go. But let me read this one more second. If to spend it all the budget, like we're having, like, it's not spending the entire budget during that time. And if it does spend the entire budget, we see it work in ebbs and flows. So standard shopping will go up and then PMax will start to go down, and then they'll just start to work with each other and start to work those standard shopping keywords into that PMax audience. And so, yeah, I'm yet to truly, unless it's for like the really, really the larger clients with larger spend, we've seen it work. But I would try going with increasing the clicks there and making sure it's not on enhanced CPC, taking that manual option.
Jan, there is a video with John explaining exactly about this. Okay, I don't know what that's about.
I think it was about that. Yeah.
Does smart shopping attribute conversions from other campaigns to itself, like how PMax currently does? Absolutely. It depends on the attribution setting that you're using, the conversion attributions. What's it called? Attribution.
Data-driven attribution?
Yeah, but what's that whole setting called? Something about conversion attribution. Conversion attribution.
Conversion? Yeah, it might be. I'd say you still have smart shopping. That's great. Because the smart shopping attribute conversions from other campaigns
to itself. Yeah, because for example, let's say you're using data-driven attribution, the algorithm can just decide where to put the conversion, right? Like you don't even know what it's decided. So if someone clicked 5 times across 3 campaigns, it's going to just slap part of the conversion onto every campaign in differing amounts. So
yeah, I don't think it's a kleptomaniac like PMax is though. So you might just get like some of that like percentage, like the 0.20 or the 0.80 rather, where PMax, if you have other campaigns running, PMax is like, yeah, that was all me.
Okay, 2 minutes. I guess this will be our last question.
Okay.
Is there a way to override Google's shipping times? I tried to do flat shipping rate time and not use Shopify. Google seems to override my changes randomly. We are gifting brand. I want accurate time. I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah, that one is tough, and one of the ones you'd have to look at.
Google doesn't have shipping times, does it?
I'd probably reach out to support. In worst case scenario, you could always just shoot us a message, hit our DMs up, and we could see if anyone on the team knows.
If you're subscribed to the channel, then they'll answer your comments on videos so you can ask questions. I'm not subscribed, I'm sorry. There's a paid subscription to the channel of some sort. And that's how you get your questions answered. On YouTube, at least.
Kicked my monitor out.
Maybe I lied. Let's do this one. This guy hasn't asked any questions yet, and we still have one whole minute left. Okay, if you were launching a new account from scratch, how would you segment or build campaign structure for an e-com business with 18,000 SKUs? If you were launching a new account from scratch, how would you build campaign structure for an e-com business with $18,000? Standard shopping or PMax? Multiple PMax campaigns or both? $18,000 right off the bat. You have quite a bit to work with, so you could do all of the above. 18,000 sounds like so much money to me. So I'm always working with 5 or 1.
I would say I would say keep one PMax campaign. It really depends how many other like ad campaign. If it's a brand spanking new thing, you've got no other mediums, you could do PMax entirely. And that's the one instance where we find you could use full build PMax, because you want to nurture and use your top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. But say if you're running Facebook or something like that, you could go PMax product feed, competitor search, branded search. And then depending on the quality of traffic and like return customer data, I would determine whether or not I want to use standard shopping. If you're getting nothing but like branded traffic after like 3 or 4 weeks running, you know that PMax needs some sort of boost. So you could start up a standard shopping campaign then, and then try to feed those keywords into there through that tactic we were talking about earlier. I think someone dropped a link to the video in there. So take a look at that, and that'd be a good way to start.
That's a good recommendation, Colby.
Hey, thanks.
All right. We made it to 2:01 actually. So sorry for keeping you guys, but I hope this was useful.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. See you guys next week. Or maybe John will. I don't know if I'll be here.
Yeah. You'll see somebody.
Somebody will be here. Okay. Bye.